This is the Johnny Cleveland Podcast, all things Cleveland sports, with your host, John Suchan. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Johnny Cleveland Podcast. We are part of the Fanatical Elves Network, part of Fans First. I'm your host, John Suchan. It is a Tuesday evening. Thank you so much for being here as we analyze all things Cleveland sports, Cleveland Browns, specifically the Browns coaching search. Oh boy, right? Would the next coach of the Cleveland Browns please stand up? We have lots of questions, lots of candidates. We've had a lot of things going on in the NFL. As my dog here to my left tries to get comfortable on the couch. Rufus is our dog. He made an appearance right before the show started here live. So welcome, Rufus, to the studio. We are, again, talking about what's going on here with the Browns and with the coaching. Lots of things happening right now. The Browns finished their season a little bit over a week ago. We've had interviews the Browns have interviewed a plethora of different candidates. Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator, was one of the candidates initially interviewed. Tommy Rees, the young offensive coordinator, was also interviewed. There are a lot of people out there who are in support of Jim Schwartz. I'm one of them who I've liked Jim Schwartz over the years. I know some people are concerned about Schwartz's background as a head coach when he was coaching the Detroit Lions. And I know that he's been in charge of the defense currently, and some are concerned that if he becomes the head coach, what will happen to the defense part of the team? Will he continue to coach that part of the team if he were to become the head coach? There's been a lot of speculation about what the Browns are saying about Jim Schwartz and him coming back, or him wanting to, if there was another coach out there that would be the head coach, would Jim Schwartz stay? Blah, blah, blah. We don't know really diddly squat. Our old coach, Kevin Stefanski, has pretty much interviewed with about every team that has an available coaching position open right now. I know some people are, it's so funny out there in La La Land how people treat that. You know, some of you like to think that he's not a very good coach, and why hasn't he been hired as a coach yet? The interesting part, not that interesting, but none of the open coaching jobs have been filled yet. And they're not going to be filled for a while. So everybody just needs to hold tight, let everything work itself out. There was some interesting news, kind of some big news over the last the last week. First off, John Harbaugh, the head coach of the Baltimore Ratbirds, the Ravens, Ratbirds, we hate them. He was there for 18 years. He was fired by the Ratbirds. So his name has been circulating amongst Browns fans heavily, hoping that maybe he would want to come back to his childhood team that he cheered for when he was a youngster. His parents, I believe, were married in Cleveland. They attended a Cleveland Browns football game after they got married. He was born in Toledo. Now, he grew up in Michigan. Some of you don't like to hear that. I think he was up in Ann Arbor. So most of you just start by saying, oh, he's from Ohio. He's from, he grew up in Toledo. He's a huge Browns fan. Yeah, they are Browns fans. But he did grow up in Michigan. Sorry to tell you that. So he's out there. There hasn't been a lot of news if he's even granted the Browns an interview. I think from what we've been hearing, the Browns have reached out to him. There's probably some conversations going on that we don't know anything about, plenty of them. But he's a potential candidate. And I think a lot of you who are older Browns fans are looking at somebody like Harbaugh, who's had success within Baltimore, that he could steady the ship, bring more wins, consistency. That's always what we're always talking about as a Browns fan, right? Now we saw little bits of that when Stefanski came over, and he did have two successful winning seasons, and he did make it to the playoffs twice, even though he spent his first playoff appearance in his basement. He did do a lot of good things that year, um, but he was god awful in other moments, and he had to go. He won 8 games over the last 2 seasons, and so he's gone. So now we're still focused on these coaching. This coach, Harbaugh was one of them. The other big news today that broke during the Ratbirds press conference, their owner of the Ratbirds talking about Harbaugh and the next coaching search, Mike Tomlin, yes, that Mike Tomlin, the coach of the Pittsburgh Squealers, decided to quit. He was potentially going to be fired, but he decided to quit after all these years. Only the fourth coach in Pittsburgh Squealer history. So Pittsburgh now is without their head coach. The Browns are out without their head coach, and the Ratbirds are out of their head coach. The one coach that still stands in the American Conference, the North Conference, is Zach Taylor, who the Bungles fans loathe. They hate him. I was down there in Cincinnati a couple weeks. You can talk to any Cincinnati Bungle fan locally, and they will tell you that Zach Taylor is crap. And yet, he's the one that didn't get fired. Isn't that funny? He's got a ginormous contract, and then the Brown family has to pay him, so that's why he's still there. So you got 3 big coaching positions open in the AFC North. The Browns are doing their due diligence. They are interviewing. They have interviewed several people, like we talked about Jim Schwartz already and Tommy Rees. The other name out there, Miami, decided after Harbaugh got fired, they decided to fire Miami Dolphins coach Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel has been in Miami, had some success, has been in Cleveland as an assistant coach years ago, so has some familiarity with the Browns organization. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody like Mike McDaniel would be a real candidate here coming over. Now, there are some young names out there that keep getting put in this cycle. One of them is this Nate Shieldhouse of the Rams. I believe he's the offensive coordinator. Very young. He just became the offensive coordinator. The other guy, his name is Grant Udinski, who, according to his Wikipedia page, lived in his car for a few weeks while he was an assistant coach. I'm trying to remember with whom. I can't remember at the moment. But he's with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He looks like he's 12. He's like 30. I could be his father. You could be his father. Anyway, Udinski is his last name, and he seems to be the hot name out there. Now, when the Browns hired Kevin Stefanski 6 years ago, he was a young and upcoming. Well, wouldn't say he's young. He was approaching. I think he was like 39 when we hired him. So he wasn't exactly young like these two guys. These guys are like in grade school. So do you go that way? Do you want to hire these two young people like a Sean McVay, who's out there with the Rams, who I think got hired when he was with the Rams when he was like 31 years old? It seems to be the going thing right now, the going trend. Everyone's talking about these young kids. Oh, we want a and you never know. You could get a Sean McVay and everything would be peaches and cream and blah, blah, blah. Guys, ladies, men, gentlemen, women out there who are watching and listening to this Browns podcast. We're the Cleveland Browns. We know, despite whatever we pick, whoever this organization picks, it's going to be an up and down cycle of emotion. I made the mistake, there's always that optimism, right? As a Browns fan, we talk about this on this show quite a bit. there's that hope. For God's sakes, man, I went to Hope College. There's actually a college in the United States called Hope College. I went to it. My son went to it. There's a place. It's up in Michigan. I know that you don't like that state very much. Some of you who listen to the show or watch the show, but there's a really cool college in Holland, Michigan, near Grand Rapids, which is called Hope College. And of course, I went there because I wanted to have a lot of hope. I already have hope, right? So as Browns fans, we have that internal hope. We're always constantly hoping that this is the year. Super Bowl, baby, Super Bowl. So now we have an opportunity. It's in front of us. We can see it. We can see it. We're going to hire one of these young kids who looks like he's 12 and in sixth grade. Is it Grant Udinsky? Is it Nate Chillhouse? They're going to change everything about the Cleveland Browns. It's a nice picture. It's a nice image. It's a nice idea. But is it going to actually happen? As a longtime Browns fan, I will say we're going to see some ups and we're going to see some downs. You're going to see some highs. You're going to see some lows. You're going to see some success. You're going to see some tragedy. That's what it is to be a Cleveland Browns fan. You know it. I know it. That's how we go. And it's okay because we're Browns fans. We understand this. This comes with the territory. It comes with the pain and the euphoria of being a Cleveland Browns fan. The part that I gets me concerned, and I've thought about it a lot over the last week and a half, 2 weeks since the Browns season has come to a close, and I realize that this person and these people, the owners, the Haslams, have a lot of money. They have had a lot of success in their own lives, business wise. They've helped, for example, down here in the Columbus area with the Columbus Crew. Beautiful new stadium down here. Lots of people love the Haslams. The Haslams have owned the Cleveland Browns since 2011, 2012. They're that kind of that one. They're that constant. They've been here through ups and downs. I don't want to blame the ownership because the owners, not necessarily. I know that the owners and the Haslams are putting forth a lot of money. They're trying to bring in talent. They have the money to spend and they have been spending it. So I'm anxious to see what they do in this coaching search. Do they want to bring in a veteran guy like a John Harbaugh? They would probably have the money to entice somebody like that to come over here. Or do they want to go with one of these young guns? I don't know, like right now in this organization, how, I think that part of my concern with the Browns and this ownership is they've been up and down, but they haven't had any sort of consistency, right? And then you start hearing these crazy stories of how the Hasms are really tanking because they really want to get the new Manning kid in a year in the draft, which is absolutely stupid talk. If you believe that kind of crap, then just stop being a Browns fan. I think that the Haslams have good intentions. I just don't know if they understand completely how to run a football organization. Soccer seems a little bit easier to run and be the owner and create a stadium than a football organization like the Cleveland Browns. If the Browns brought in new ownership, maybe they will eventually. Obviously, not anytime soon because the Haslams are at the centerpiece of building this brand new spanking dome stadium in 2029. But just saying, they've been the one constant. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And I question it. Not going to change because they're the ones who own the team. And until somebody tells them you can't own the team, which nobody can do that because they own the team, we're where we're at. But as far as the decision making, for example, them keeping Andrew Berry, I know that's been a point of contention with a lot of people. Why did they fire Stefanski and keep Andrew Berry? Some of you who are run to the defense of Andrew Berry immediately say, well, he's had a lot of success with some of his draft picks and some of his free agency signings, and the Haslams have even pointed that out. Okay, fine. There has been some success, but there's also been a lot of terrible decision making. And that's what a lot of fans remind others about. I don't know who the Browns are going to hire as their next head coach. On one hand, I like the veteran idea of a John Harbaugh, and yes, his love affair with the Cleveland Browns, and this maybe, just maybe, like a LeBron James who grew up in Akron in Northeast Ohio. He did help bring a championship to the area with his Cleveland Cavaliers. Maybe it will take some person like like a Harbaugh who does have ties to the Cleveland Browns going way back to his youth and his family. So maybe it would take some sort of miraculous thing like that to spark some sort of thing, you know. Um Otherwise, Mike Tomlin is not going to be coaching next year. He's going to take some time off. He's going to go sit up in the TV booth. People will love listening to Mike Tomlin. It's so funny too with Tomlin getting fired today or leaving the team. He wasn't officially fired. He decided to leave, I guess. Some people in the national media or over at ESPN are trashing or putting down Pittsburgh Squealer fans who are celebrating Mike Tomlin being fired or let go today. And they say, "Oh, what a tragedy! What a tragedy!" These fans, they just don't know. You know, it's their prerogative, but what are they thinking? This is the most successful coach that Pittsburgh's had, all these winning seasons, but he can't win a damn playoff game, or if he does, it's one and done. They haven't won a playoff game, I think, since what 2015. They did win the Super Bowl back in what 2007, but it's funny to me how the national media likes to rip and I don't like Squealer fans, but them ripping the Squealer fans for celebrating Tomlin leaving is just kind of a huge joke. I mean, Tomlin was there for 19 seasons. Give the fans there a break. I mean, they don't want mediocrity. And that's the question about here, you know, would we as Browns fans, would we trade that? Like if we were in the same position and we kept being a 500 team and making it to the first round of the playoffs and getting knocked out, would we like that as Browns fans any more than we are right now where we're struggling through a 3-14 season or a 5-12 season? I don't know. But the guy was there for almost 20 years. Fans are giddy and happy that he's leaving town. No, I'm sure not every fan is, but every Pittsburgh fan that I've talked to, even before this was announced, always talked about getting rid of Tomlin. Like Tomlin just needs to go. So let the silly squealer fans have their day, and to ESPN, just shove it. You have no idea. You just like to talk nonsense, and it's just irritating. And it really drives fans away. I'll tell you right now, as an old person that watches TV, I'm watching a lot less TV because when I turn on ESPN and some of these other programs, I mean, it's just crap. It's like it's not journalism, and it's sad because we've lost that. We've lost a lot of things over these last several years. And something like ESPN and sports like that is really a tragedy too because it's just not it's not interesting, and you don't you are playing to clicks, you're playing to trends, and it's just not good. So I'll continue not to watch you guys. We don't need you guys. I do like listening to the Mannings when they do their Monday night or their football analysis. Watching that and listening to that, at least it's a little bit more entertaining because those guys at least have been around the block. They're older. They know the game. Of course, you know Peyton Manning, just Hall of Famer. So all right, let's pause for a quick commercial break. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more about this coaching search. And I want to give a shout out to a former Cleveland Brown after the break. Hey, thanks for coming back to us. I want to give a shout out to Hemisphere Coffee Roasters. They shake the hand of the farmer. If you go to our X page for the Fanatical Elves Network, click on the link at the top. If you buy any coffee off of that link, we get back 15% here at the Fanatical Elves Network. We would appreciate that very much. I want to give a shout out also to Steve Hemrich, who I believe is a little bit under the weather. His podcast, which usually airs on Wednesdays, there's a Glean at noon, will be on the following week. They will not have a show tomorrow, but I want to give a shout out to Steve for letting us use his X page to give out all of this energy here on my Johnny Cleveland podcast. So thank you, Steve, for that. Steve, I also want to give a shout out to all the guys here in on the network. Steve Hemrich, I mentioned, Steve Gill, who just did the Dog Pound South podcast. His show is usually, well, it has been on Mondays during the season. It's shifted back to Sunday, so check that show out. Coming up later this week on Thursday, we're going to have Rod Bloom with his Browns Blitz. Sam the Man with the Browns breakdowns. We've got Joel Cade with What the Elf Was That. We'll have the Fanatical Elves show Thursday as well. So tune in for all of that. As I pause for a Diet Coke break. We are looking for more podcasters. If you have an interest in the Cleveland Browns, if you have an interest in Cleveland sports and would like to consider doing some podcasting, the Fanatical Elves Network is looking for new talent, young talent. We're going to be like the Cleveland Browns search. We're going for those young, youthful players, youthful coaches like that Grant Udinsky and Nate Chillhouse, who look like they're 12 years old. So if you are a rising podcaster and have an interest in doing some podcasting and potentially doing some writing as well, give us a DM, direct message to either the Fanatical Elves Network, or you can give a shout out to me at my Twitter page, X page at John Suchan, JOHNSUCHAN, if you have that interest. All right, so we're watching with bated breath who the Browns are going to have, who are they going to interview next. Right now I have no idea, and you don't have any idea either. So we'll just sit back, let them do their interviews, and find out what happens next. I think if they stuck with somebody like I said, Jim Schwartz, I'd be just fine with that. He's a veteran coach, has a lot of presence, and I think that's really the quandary right now. Do you want somebody to come into the Browns organization that has a wealth of football coaching experience, not the analytic crap, but like somebody who's actually like a football, like understands X's and O's and can get players to get, ready to play a football game? Is that somebody like a veteran like Jim Schwartz? Or are you going to come in and get one of these young guys? The youth movement, and these kids who are playing football these days, they're not always tuned in to the old folk. So is it beneficial more for the Browns to bring in somebody who's young, like this Grant or this Nate guy? Could they be the next Sean McVay? Who knows? I would sit back, grab your popcorn, and let's see what happens next. Now, in other coaching news in another sport, the Cavs, Kenny Atkinson and the Cavs are struggling. And it's so funny because, I follow the Cavs, like, but I'm not following them day and night with bated breath, like I said, and overly concerned. Yes, they are struggling horribly this year. They're 21 wins and like 19 losses. It blows my mind in this day and age how you can bring in a coach like Kenny Atkinson, who I think is a great, 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 great coach. You give him, he comes in 1 year last year and has really good success. Everyone on the face of the planet's like, oh my God, this is the greatest. And I was doing the same thing. And, JB Bickerstaff can shove it up his behind, as far as I'm concerned. I know there are some of you JB Bickerstaff fans out there, and I know the Pistons are doing a hell of a job and blah, 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 blah. But JB Bickerstaff was not taking that Cavaliers team any further than he did. They brought Kenny Atkinson in, and he did some great things. No, they didn't go much further, but they did go a little bit further. Now, this year, they are, again, struggling horribly. There's a lot of concern about Atkinson, and people are talking about him being fired. Are you kidding me? Come on. I mean, you talk about, we're just talking about the Browns and stability and all these things with Kevin Stefanski and finally getting fired after 6 seasons. And you Cavalier fans are so quick to like, oh, we got to get rid of him. Like he's not the guy. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? You have no idea. Like if you're crying and complaining about Kenny Atkinson and think that he's a horrible coach, Go root for some other team. My God, you are not Cleveland fans. You got to get behind these guys. You got to stop being stupid about how you are monitoring these. Man, I get pissed off about what the coaches do and the decision making and all that. And I know that the Cavs are sucking it up big time. But for God's sakes, man, he just got here. Give the man a break. He's a good coach. This team is not doing their best. I know some of you are like, well, they're not responding. They're not doing this. And they're on this roller coaster. Yeah, they are. And maybe they will the whole season. We've had a good run, folks. We really have. We've had a really consistent run with this Cavalier organization, even between JB Bickerstaff, who I'll give him some credit, who got him to the promise. I mean, got him there at the level that they're at. And then Kenny Atkinson continued that. They had a hell of a season last year, only lost 18 games on the season. They've already lost more games this season than all of last year. I get it. But maybe it's just time to let things be for right now. You're sixth or seventh in the ratings right now in the Eastern Conference. I'm not concerned about the Detroit Pistons. If you're concerned about the Detroit Pistons and think somehow they're going to win an NBA title, you are crazy. They have JB Bickerstaff as their coach. And the conversation right there. They're not winning an NBA title. They're not going there. I know they beat Cleveland the other day. I get it. Whatever. It's January. The playoffs don't begin until April. The real playoffs start in May. So give it a break. You got 5 months. And give Kenny Atkinson some time. And if they don't do any better than they are right now, so be it. Let him come back, do a third season. Let him do a fourth season, for God's sakes. Then make some decisions. Now, as far as the makeup of this team, I know some of you out there really hate Jarrett Allen. Give it a break. If you want to keep complaining about Jarrett Allen, so be it. And man, if he gets traded or whatever, so be it. But again, good kid, great kid. You don't know. Some of you out there who complain about these players, and maybe it's because I do know some of the players, and I've met some of them and I know them a little bit more. Maybe that's why I'm coming to their defense, because there are so many of you out there in La La Land who have so much wasted time, and you don't bother to. You're just throwing these kids under the bus constantly. A player like Dean Wade, yeah, I know Dean Wade personally a little bit. The kid has had an ongoing knee injury. The kid has been with this team for 7, 8 years now. And yeah, he's had some injuries on and off. But some of you who are saying he's a waste and all this stuff, you have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea what you're looking at when you look at a team that is playing basketball. Dean Wade is one of the best defenders on the team. Jarrett Allen is a very good player in himself. There's a lot of good talent on this Cavalier team. Obviously, that's why they've won all these big time games over the last several seasons. But give it a break. If you're ripping these guys and talking about Max Strus, who's I know he's dealing with another serious injury. Look, this Cavs team has some injuries. Darius Garland has had a series of injuries. I get it. It's tough. But man, some of you guys are just way overboard with your takes. I know you're disappointed, but man, if it's going to be a bad season, it's going to be a bad season. Move on. I would hope that you would still cheer your Cavalier team on. It's not what you hoped it would be, but you can only have a run so long. I mean, not to change subjects again or sports, but go back to the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Chiefs, run of success and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift is coming to an end. I know some of you are really disappointed with that news, especially about Taylor Swift, but you'll get over it. So let the Cavaliers have their time. Cheer these guys on. They'll continue to play hard. I know they lost to Utah yesterday, and I know Kevin Love came back. And how the hell did they lose to Utah at a home game? I get it. And look, I know Kenny Atkinson's not saying all the right things, and all of you want him fired. But if he gets fired, that is just a boneheaded decision by the organization who's listened too much to you guys who are always complaining about the Cavaliers. It's just sad. So stop being sad. Start supporting your Cleveland teams a little bit better. Then you got the third team in the city, the Guardians, who have no money that goes toward their team, but somehow every year they figure out how to win. It's a long 162 game season in baseball. Cleveland fans, should be, you have a lot to be thankful for, a lot to cheer for, and all of that. So, man, all right. Well, Happy New Year. I hope your New Year's gotten off to a good start, and hopefully, we'll find out more about the Cleveland Browns coaching search as we continue. I did want to give one shout out back to football. Our beloved Nick Chubb, who used to play for the Cleveland Brownies for years, and we thought maybe at one point would go into the Hall of Fame. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. But unfortunately, the Cleveland gave up on him. I know there was a lot of back and forth with that. But here's the thing. And I even had made a little bet with my colleague Steve about him getting to 1,000 yards, which he did. And I think he got like around 600 yards in the season. But a shout out to Nick Chubb, who went to Pittsburgh yesterday with his new team, the Houston Texans. And Nick ran 10 times for 48 yards, one time for 9 yards. And no, I know he's slowed down and he's not the old Nick Chubb. But a shout out to Nick Chubb, who, I like seeing, especially a player that we all loved, we thought was the heart and soul of the Cleveland Browns, who's getting his opportunity with a new team. And that new team is just better. And they're making more progress than our Cleveland Browns. Why that is up for a lot of debate. But I'm happy to see someone like Nick Chubb get his time. Now he's going into the second round of the playoffs, one step closer to getting to a potential Super Bowl. Would it not be amazing to see someone like Nick Chubb? And I know we're a Cleveland Browns organization or podcast, but to see a great Nick Chubb get into the Super Bowl. If you're not cheering for Nick Chubb going all the way and earning a championship and a Super Bowl, I know there are some of you out there that will say that's crazy. I don't cheer for other teams and other players and other teams because he doesn't play for us. Well, figure it out. Learn how to be thankful and appreciative of what you got to witness for all those years that he was in a Cleveland Browns uniform. He did more good for this organization than you will ever understand. And if you can't figure that out, maybe you shouldn't be a Browns fan either. So appreciate what Nick Chubb did for this team and appreciate what he's doing right now for the Houston Texans. They had him in that game early in Pittsburgh. And if many of you all know this already, but it was a tragedy what happened to Nick Chubb when he got taken out by a dirty hit by the squealer in early in that game several years ago. He ruined his knee, but he bounced back and he went back to Pittsburgh. And in that game last night was awesome with his counterpart. Last name, what's his last? Mark. The other kid's last name is Mark. He ran for 112 yards, but between the two of them, they dominated the Pittsburgh Squealers, their run game, their run defense, and so a shout out to Nick Chubb. And I hope we'll see the Houston Texans play. I think the Patriots next. So a shout out to Nick Chubb. Looking forward to seeing how he does. I have a poster up here of Nick Chubb, and you might even have a poster or two, a photo of Nick Chubb in your Cleveland Browns basement, whatever you've got. I've got a loft of Cleveland stuff up here. So, hey, everybody, I appreciate you tuning in here to the Johnny Cleveland podcast, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Talk to you next week. Lots of things happening, so we'll stay tuned to the Fanatical Elves Network. If anything breaks, we will be back on to give you all the breaking news later on this week. Again, stay tuned for our Fanatical Elves show on Thursday, and then that'll be followed by Rod Bloom's The Browns Blitz on Thursday. So look forward to those shows. Until next time, everybody, have a great evening. Go Browns.